Hi, welcome back to part 4 of the Ocelot picture. Before we go any farther, let's do a little recap of what we've done so far in the previous videos. In the first one, I showed you how I painted the picture in pastels. The second picture, I showed you how I cut the mat for all of my pictures. And in the last video, which was quite long, and I apologize for that, I showed you how I cut and assemble all of the frames that I do for my pictures. This one, I promise you, won't be anywhere near as long as that. This time what we're going to do is I'm going to show you how I actually mount the pictures in the frames. So stick around, I'll show you how it's done. Okay, well, I've laid out everything that we need for framing the Ocelot picture. We start out with a picture. I've got the mat, and I also have a piece of clear polycarbonate, which we'll put over the top to protect the painting. And of course the frame. I've got a drill, I've got cable, a couple of eyelets, a cutting wheel to cut the paper backing that I put on the back of the frame. And this here is one of the most important parts. It's like a stapler. You'll see how that works in a few minutes. And pencil and a little thing to wind in the eyelets. And I use a hair dryer to dry the glue on the paper on the back. So let me clear all this off, then we'll get started. Okay, the first thing we do is we get our frame, make sure it's get the right side up. If there's anything that's you like to hide on the bottom or whatever, you put that down on the bottom. And then we get our clear piece of plexiglass here, and then we set this into the frame first. I then take the mat, make sure it's nice and clean, wipe everything off good, lay that over my picture. Make sure everything is nice and clean, no little bits of dust or dirt or anything. And then lay that into the picture. This is what it will look like when it's all finished. But I always like to check, because for some reason, it happens very frequently, I'll get it all nice and clean, I'll put it on, I'll start stapling it, and there you go right there. There's a little black piece of something in there that needs to be cleaned off. So take it out. Well, this is on the glass part itself. Oops, now it's down here. So you get a little bit of static, and that can cause a lot of problems. I wipe this down with Windex to sort of anti-static it, and before I put it in, but for some reason you still get little bits of debris in there. Okay. And now I'm just giving another check. It looks good. And now we take our little staple machine here. This thing is the handiest thing going when it comes to picture framing. It used to be you had to put in little brads or little glazing points or something like that. This thing makes it very simple. So when I made the frame, I allowed for a little bit of space all the way around so I could wiggle it and center it and whatever I need to do. And this thing, basically you press it down near the corner, and it shoots a nice flat thing which is all flush with the surface. There's nothing sticking up, no heads of nails or anything like that. Then I usually do the opposite side next. This way it's pinned in nicely. And double check. For some reason, the little bits like to magically appear. finally the last side here. And there you have it. Okay, now that's how simple it is to actually mount the picture. But what I do next is I cover the back with like a dust sheet here. It's a piece of paper. As you can see, there's little gaps and grooves and stuff here. Dust can get in there and migrate to the front of the picture over time. So the idea of the dust shield is a piece of paper goes on the back here and it keeps all that from happening. So I will set that up and we'll do that next. Okay, well, I've got the paper here and I've got the picture centered over here with a little bit of a margin all the way around. I use this little cutting wheel here to finish it off here. This works very nice for cutting paper, as you can see. And then what we do, after I get the paper cut, is I get some common wood glue and I put a little bead of it all the way around the back here. I don't put too much, but I put enough. It's, after a while you kind of get a feel for it. I spread it out with a roller. I just try to get a nice even coat all the way around. You just use this roller to just spread it, roll it around all over, get it nice and even. Nice even coat. And just on the frame, not on the picture itself. And the thing you've got to kind of watch, it's not critical, but what happens is the paper does tend to absorb the moisture from the glue, and it may wrinkle a little bit, so don't be alarmed by that. What I do is I put the hair dryer on there, and that dries the glue and the paper, and it gets it back pretty much the way when I put it on, nice and flat. So just about got this the way we like it. Nice even coat. You don't want it dripping down the sides, but you do want to get it nicely onto the corners so you don't have a loose corner lifting up after when they're nice and even. And that looks pretty good. And now comes the tricky part. If you don't have a helper, it's kind of tricky to handle all this stuff at once. But I think we got it. Careful not to drop it prematurely. Center it so I got paper all the way around, and then I just press it. Make a good contact with it for a few seconds here. Slide it to the edge and carefully pick it up. And then we get the hair dryer out. Now, let's see, I usually do that over here, so we're going to move here. Oh, there you go. It got a little wrinkly, like I said it would, but the hairdryer takes out most of that. And it's like tight as a drum on there. It looks pretty good. So next we're going to trim the excess paper off. Okay, I've got this pretty broad bladed knife here. It's nice and flexible, and I like that because I don't want to cut under the here because you tend to nick the wood. So when I'm able to press it tightly against the frame, it'll just follow the frame without actually cutting into it. So I basically just go along the edge like this. And keep on going all the way around. As you can see, by flexing the blade like that, the edge can't cut into the frame. So this, it works out pretty well. But believe me, it's by trial and error. I've done enough little nicks and boo-boos to find out the best way to do this. Guess we didn't get quite deep enough there, or else I got a dull blade. A little spot up the top here. And there we go. So it's all nice and neat. Now, making sure the top of the picture is up, I put it down here. And what we're going to do next is mount the eyes, the screw eyes, in here. I've got a couple of eyes and the cable. I have a measuring stick and a pencil and a eyelet winder upper. Now what I usually do is come down from the top, approximately we'll say 3.5 inches for this one. It'll vary depending on the size of the picture that you're doing. So I'll go 3.5 inches here, 3.5 inches here. And the thing you have to be careful for is you want to be drilling into this thick part of the frame. If you drill here, the eyelet may come through. You see the screw, and you don't want that to happen for sure. So I measure in here, and it's about 3/8 of an inch or so that I come in here, and that'll hit pretty much the center of this bead, which is the thickest part of the frame. So at my mark here, I'll come in 3/8 of an inch, and that's where I drill my holes. And the drill is slightly smaller, but pretty close to the size of the shank of the eyelet there. And get these guys going here. And I put this little thing in here to wind them up. They have a special tool for this, but this works fine. Get that down till it's nice and snug, but not too tight, because you can break off these screws. I've had that happen. That's why I pre-drill them. I've tried doing it without, or just using some kind of a punch or something to make a little starter hole, but once it starts getting deeper and deeper into the wood, there's more and more resistance, and more times than not, you're going to break the shank of the eyelet off. So these go nice and easy, no stress or strain, but they're in deep enough, and it's quite strong enough this way too. Just a little bit farther there. And I kind of angle them this way to keep them in line of travel of the cable. Not really important to do that, but it's just something I do. And I've got this wound cable here. Go through one eyelet, across to the other side, and I pull it back inch and a half or so, and then just kind of wind it onto itself. And then I just kind of snug up that little end so there's no little sharp barb on the end here. Just wind it in nice and tight with the pliers. That makes it pretty smooth, so nobody gets cut on it. There. And what I like to do here is keep the top of the loop approximately about an inch and a half from the top. So I just thought I'd pop in here to apologize for the abrupt end to that last clip. For some reason the camera decided to stop working. I had plenty of battery and data card, but it for some reason decided to stop. So anyway, I just want to finish up where we left off. A quick recap: we put these screw eyes in here, and I started to tell you where I tried to determine the height here being 1.5 inches, 2 inches, whatever. And the way I did that was by pulling setting a ruler on here and pulling the cable taut, and then just kinking that back and cutting it off and wrapping it up. Also, what I did, I put on these little felt bumpers on the bottom here. And they protect the wall. If the picture should happen to swing a little bit, it might possibly scrape or damage. These things have an adhesive back on them, but in time they do tend to peel off. It doesn't take too much to take them off. So I put a tiny little drop of glue on here underneath, and then put it on here and let the regular adhesive hold it, but then the glue will firm up and hold it much more permanently. And I also put a shameless business card on the back here as well. So that's I just wanted to come in and again apologize for that last clip. Well, that's how it's done. That's how I go about producing a picture from start to finish. Now, if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. Also, leave a comment below. I'd love to hear from you. And while you're at it, check out my website at www.gopyrostudios, that's all one word, .com. Up there, I've got some more of my artwork, and it's all available if you're interested. You can contact me at the site. Well, that's about it for now, and thanks for watching all the videos in this series, and we'll see you in the next one.